Hey guys, welcome back to another Destiny video. Today we're talking primary weapons and how I would change them to make them better suited for dealing with special weapons, shotguns in particular. There's no doubt that special weapons have been running the Crucible ever since last December, but it's worse than ever now, so I think it's time for a lot of buffs to the primary weapons. And yes, this includes the low impact pulses and mid impact hand cannons, but these are weapons I will try to balance every other weapon type around, so keep that in mind before you start posting angry comments down below. So let's just get right into it and start with the pulse rifles. This weapon class is very divided at the moment. The two lower impact archetypes are quite strong while the two higher impact variants are weak. Every single pulse rifle archetype received a damage nerf last December. What I would do is I would revert the damage of pulse rifles back to House of Wolves numbers, with the exception of the messenger archetype, which was quite OP back then. That archetype should of course receive a buff too, albeit a smaller one. This change would mean that the Clever Dragon archetype would be doing 24 damage to the head as opposed to 23, and body shot damage would remain unaffected. The Hawksaw archetype would be doing 27 to the head and 18 to the body. The mid-impact tier with guns like the Nerwin's Mercy and Villainy within would deal 33 damage to the head and 22 to the body. And on high impact pulses I would increase the damage slightly from 23 body shot damage and 34 headshot damage to 24 body shot damage and 36 headshot damage. These changes actually wouldn't decrease the shots to kill for neither body shots or headshots on any pulse rifle archetype, but it would make it far less frequent to leave someone with a slither of health, only for them to get away or close the gap on you due to the very strong movement abilities in this game. So those really fast kills that pulse rifles can get on you now and then, they will still happen, but they won't be any faster. But you will be able to use a pulse rifle and effectively shut down a shotgunner far more consistently than you can right now. This would also allow for occasional 2-burst kills on the Nerwin's Mercy archetype, although this would require you landing 6 headshots and your opponent would also have to be running a low armor build, so it would be very rare. When it comes to hand cannons, I think they're in a pretty good spot right now, but there is one game mechanic that can make this weapon class very unrewarding at times, and that is of course Bloom. If you're unfamiliar with the term Bloom, it's basically a mechanic that lowers the accuracy of your weapon while aiming down sights, and that is what causes phantom bullets to occur. Not only is it highly frustrating when your bullets don't hit where you're aiming, but Bloom also effectively kills any hand cannon that doesn't have a high range stat. This means that the low impact archetype is basically useless due to their low base range, and it generally discourages perk variety on hand cannons. You absolutely need rifle barrel, or at the very least reinforced barrel, and if you don't have any range perks, you're just gonna shot your hand cannon. I would personally remove the Bloom mechanic from all primary weapons. It's actually present on most weapon classes, although it's more noticeable on hand cannons due to their low range and slow rate of fire. Now some of you may think that this change would make hand cannons overpowered due to their fast time to kill, but this is balanced out by the steep drop off in range and aim assist. And if I were to have my way, pulse rifles would of course also be reverted to year 1 damage, and back then pulse rifles were a much more popular option than hand cannons. Mind you, back then, hand cannons could practically snipe people across the map too, so I really don't think hand cannons would become a problem. I would also increase stability across the board on the low impact hand cannons. These hand cannons are meant to be close range powerhouses, which is why their range stat is so poor. But even before Bloom was ever a thing, these hand cannons didn't see much use. Buffing stability would make them easier to fire quickly and accurately, therefore making them fit better into the close quarters role that they're supposed to fill. Most of these hand cannons currently have a stability stat somewhere between 30 and 45, which is actually lower than the mid-tier impact. I would suggest increasing stability by 15 or even 20 for all hand cannons in this archetype, making the average stability roughly 55. Removing Bloom and increasing stability on low impact hand cannons would really encourage diversity on hand cannons, and it could also potentially mean that low impact hand cannons could be top tier weapons for the first time. Moving on to auto rifles, they have not been in a good spot for a long time and have proven difficult for Bungie to balance. The Doctrine of Passing archetype was extremely powerful for a while in year 2 because of how easy it was to use combined with a very fast time to kill. But every other auto rifle archetype has been amongst the worst weapons in the game ever since they were nerfed back in year 1. And I think this trouble balancing auto rifles can be traced back to the very first auto rifle nerf. Every other primary weapon class has a headshot modifier of 1.5, but auto rifles had theirs reduced to 1.25. This means that their time to kill is very consistent. The benefit from hitting headshots is definitely there, but you're not really punished for hitting body shots. This is exactly why the Doctrine of Passing was overpowered. The time to kill with body shots was extremely fast. This is also why Bungie hasn't been able to balance the other archetypes, as they would have basically zero drawbacks if they were buffed. I honestly think the only reason the Doctrine archetype got through testing was because they didn't factor counterbalance into the equation. So what should be done? Well, it's rather obvious. The headshot multiplier needs to be brought back up to 1.5x. This should go along with a small damage nerf too, as we would otherwise bring auto rifles back to their vanilla state where they were quite honestly overpowered. For the high impact auto rifles, I would suggest body shot damage being brought down to 20, meaning headshots would be doing 30 damage. On the mid impact auto rifles, I would bring body shot damage down to 15, which would put headshot damage at 23. And lastly, the Doctrine archetype would be doing 11 damage for body shots and 16 for headshots. This would increase the time to kill on all auto rifles slightly, making them able to compete with pulse rifles at close ranges. Their time to kill would still be slightly slower than pulse rifles and hand cannons, but the balancing factor would be the ease of use that auto rifles provide. The lowered body shot damage also means that you are actually punished for hitting body shots, as it will increase your time to kill significantly. And lastly, I wouldn't actually change scout rifles. The thing about scout rifles is that they aren't suited for most of Destiny's PvP maps, but on the maps that allow for long range gunplay, scout rifles can absolutely dominate. Trials of Osiris on First Light was a perfect example of that. I personally rocked my Cryptic Dragon for most of the week and I dominated. But I wouldn't be able to do that on the majority of Destiny's maps, as they're quite simply too small for scout rifles. The issue is the map design and not the weapon. So to quickly recap, I would increase pulse rifle damage up to House of Wolves levels with the exception of the Messenger archetype, which would receive a smaller buff, remove bloom on primary weapons, increase stability on all low impact hand cannons, increase the headshot modifier on auto rifles from 1.25 to 1.5, and slightly decrease auto rifle damage. Now do remember that these are my opinions. Some of you may disagree, and that's fine. I would love to hear what you have to say on the matter too. But let's keep the debate civilized and not just throw hate at each other. Unfortunately, that's something I've seen far too much of when it comes to debating balance in this game. In the end, we all want what's best for the game, keep that in mind. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I will catch you next time.